The 2026 World Cup's expansion to 48 teams makes squad depth and travel resilience the tournament's biggest competitive edges. That shift favors nations with 26 reliable pros across top leagues and managers who can switch systems mid-tournament, not just one or two superstars. On balance, Brazil and France look strongest. Brazil for position-by-position quality and tactical flexibility, France for a deep, versatile core already tested in knockout play. Argentina remains a contender thanks to continuity and elite finishing, but age and reliance on individual moments are real limits. Spain's possession model still controls games, yet a high-intensity press can unsettle them, while England's attacking riches are tempered by questions of defensive consistency and system adaptability. Germany's rebuild emphasizes pressing and structure, which could thrive over a long, travel-heavy schedule. The tri-host setup matters. The U.S. and Mexico gain genuine home field advantages, and travel patterns will punish shallow squads. In this video, you'll get logical, evidence-based rankings and system-by-system comparisons, who benefits from the 48-team format, which tactical matchups to watch, and which teams are overvalued on name recognition alone. Stick around if you want clear, practical reasons to believe, and to spot the realistic dark horses before the draw's even done. World Cup 2026, favorites and their tactical secrets. Several national teams arrive with clear tactical identities that justify their status as leading contenders. Deep squads, rehearsed game plans, and managers who can change shape without losing coherence. Brazil combines technically gifted attackers with dynamic fullbacks who create overloads on the flanks. France pairs world-class forwards with interchangeable midfielders and bench depth that allows tactical switches. Spain emphasizes positional possession and control of the half spaces. Germany relies on coordinated pressing triggers and structured build-up through midfield. England blends physical wing play with a variety of attacking patterns. These are not empty labels. Coaches have shown in recent competitions how these systems can be executed under pressure, and the personnel available to each side match those plans. Brazil's tactical secret lies in asymmetry and transition. Fullbacks push high and wide, often inverting or pinching inside to create triangular overloads around central midfielders, while wingers drift inside to become secondary playmakers. This forces opponents to decide whether to track the inverted fullback, opening space behind them, or to concede central channels that Brazil's midfielders can exploit with short diagonals. Spain's advantage is tactical plasticity. A manager can deploy a flat midfield three to dominate possession or morph into a back three with wingbacks to overwhelm flanks. The front line can press as a unit or drop into pockets to invite pressing traps. Spain's approach, by contrast, is methodical. Numerical superiority through short passing, coordinated rotations between a deep pivot and a false nine, and relentless focus on controlling the ball to create openings rather than relying on individual dribbles. Different formations create predictable strengths and vulnerabilities, and comparing them helps explain why some teams are better built for tournament success. A 4-3-3 facilitates wide pressing and quick transitions into the channels, making it effective for teams that want to pin opponents in their half, but it can leave half spaces between the wide forward and fullback if the central mid is overcommitted. The 4-2-3-1 gives defensive stability through double pivots and a clear number 10, which aids against counterattacking teams. However, it risks being outnumbered between the lines by teams that overload the midfield. A 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 can dominate flanks with wingbacks and create central numerical superiority, yet those systems can be exposed by quick switch of play and isolated wide defenders when opponents have rapid wingers. Objectively, a squad's depth determines whether it can sustain these shapes across a condensed schedule, not just whether it can execute them once. Underdogs will look to exploit the tactical tendencies of favorites by forcing them into uncomfortable patterns. Teams sitting in a low block can lure high possession sides into long lateral passes and then counter with vertical balls behind advancing fullbacks. Direct diagonal switches and second ball aggression neutralize teams that rely on slow positional progression. Set pieces also become decisive. Many favorites invest time in rehearsed routines, precisely because tournament football tightens margins. Goalkeeper roles matter too. A keeper who functions as a sweeper provides the high defensive line with safety, but mistakes are punished quickly. Conversely, a goalkeeper focused on shot stopping without aggressive positioning reduces the risk of risky turnovers, but can allow opponents more space in transition. When predicting likely outcomes, the prudent criterion is adaptability. Teams that can change tempo, switch formations, and reload personnel without losing structural identity, while executing well-practiced defensive patterns and set-piece plans, logically have the best chances of surviving the variety and intensity of tournament matches. A detailed analysis of the top 8 teams. Brazil enters the conversation as a favorite because of its attacking depth and the balance between individual brilliance and collective fluidity. The Seleccion's frontline options, wide players who can cut inside, a technical number 10, and several mobile forwards allow multiple tactical setups, from a 4-2-3-1 that overloads half spaces to a more direct 4-3-3 that exploits fast transitions. Their midfield mix of ball retrieval and progressive passing lets them control tempo against teams that prefer possession. Conversely, when opponents sit deep, Brazil can stretch defenses with inverted fullbacks in inside runs. The main vulnerability is defensive transitions against fast counterattackers. When central defenders are drawn out, space is open between lines, and opponents who combine quick vertical play with guile on the wings can expose that gap. France projects strength through elite individual match winners and a flexible tactical core that can switch from heavy press to deeper block without a dramatic personnel change. Kylian Mbappé is the fulcrum for counterattacks and forward penetration, but the team's structure, compact midfield units with dynamic wide forwards, is what sustains long campaigns. Their bench quality in creative and defensive positions gives them strategic options in knockout games where match control matters. A logical concern is cohesion. Squads built around star power sometimes struggle to impose a single identity in high-stakes matches, and that can lead to inconsistent pressing angles and spacing errors in defense. Argentina combines technical midfield control with an attack-first mentality. They are compact in possession and seek quick vertical connections to reach their forwards. Their success hinges on sustained midfield protection to shield a backline that can be pulled wide by nimble wingers. When opponents apply organized, high-intensity pressing through coordinated triggers, Argentina's build-up through short passes becomes riskier and requires sharper off-ball movement to create passing lanes. They remain potent in set-piece situations and in moments where creative interplay around the box produces high-quality chances, but depth at defensive midfield can be a question against teams that beat them to second balls. England relies on a balanced spine, a recognized center forward, energetic box-to-box midfielders, and creative wide attackers, and they pair this with a pragmatic willingness to rotate systems between matches. Their pressing is disciplined, and they often win territorial battles through wide overloads that create crossing and cutback opportunities. Tactical flexibility is a plus. Switching to a back three to generate midfield superiority, for example, has proven useful in tournaments. Still, England's Achilles heel can be transitional defending when fullbacks are advanced and central midfielders are pulled out of position. Clinical finishing against compact defenses is also required, otherwise matches can stall. Spain's foundation is possession dominance and positional rotation, built around midfielders who can recycle the ball and thread incisive passes. Their ideal approach is to suffocate opponents through sustained possession and then exploit the half space with late runs from midfielders. This system works best when the team maintains compactness and avoids vertical disconnections between defense and attack. Against teams that sit low and invite pressure, Spain's creative players must produce quick, purposeful combinations to create chances. Otherwise, they risk sterile possession and low expected goal outputs. Defensive compactness and set-piece marking remain practical areas to monitor. Germany brings a blend of structured pressing and positional adaptability, with a tendency to press in waves and then transition through rapid vertical passes. Their strengths lie in organized phases, coordinated pressing triggers, disciplined backline shifts, and midfield runners joining attacks at the right moments. This creates a reliable pipeline of opportunities, from turnovers and controlled build-up play. Challenges appear when spontaneous creativity is needed against ultra-defensive teams. In such matches, Germany must rely on individual initiative or tactical tweaks to break deep blocks, rather than defaulting to repeated frontal attacks. Portugal is a team that combines strong one-on-one creators with a midfield that can both retain and progress the ball, offering multiple routes to goal. Direct combinations, wing overloads, or late midfield insertions into the box. Their frontline versatility lets them morph between a narrow overload through the middle and wide, cross-based attacks, depending on opponent weaknesses. The pragmatic risk is dependence on moments of individual brilliance. If top creators are tightly marked or off form, Portugal may struggle to produce sustained high-quality chances without a clear plan B. Defensive organization on counters is also a point of focus, as emphasis on attacking overloads sometimes leaves spaces to be exploited. Netherlands features a well-drilled positional system that leverages ball-playing center backs and midfielders who can both progress play and shield the defense. Their typical strengths are territorial control with purposeful vertical passes and wide fullbacks who provide overlaps without sacrificing shape. Versatility in forward roles allows them to press in coordinated manners and to interchange front positions to unbalance markers. Where they must improve is in converting territorial dominance into clear-cut chances against compact defenses. Finishing consistency and set-piece efficiency will likely determine how far they can realistically advance. 3D formations and playing styles. Top international sides entering the tournament present three-dimensional tactical profiles that place equal emphasis on lateral widths, vertical depth, and layered interchanges between lines. In practical terms, the third dimension is not altitude, but positional depth and the vertical channels teams exploit. For example, a side that plays 4-3-3 with inverted wingers uses width from fullbacks, while the inside forwards create vertical penetration through the central third. This interplay between width, depth, and vertical layering determines how favorites will construct attacks, absorb pressure, and manage transitions. Teams that favor a possession-based 4-3-3 typically prioritize short passing triangles, a dominant central midfielder or regista to control tempo, and overlapping fullbacks to supply width. That shape creates a clear vertical axis. The center backs, single pivot, and attacking trio form three geographic layers, making third-man runs and half-space overloads predictable and exploitable. Objectively, this system works best against opponents who press in narrow blocks because the wide seams created by advancing fullbacks and mobile number 8s open channels for direct passes into the final third. Its weakness is quick transitional counterattacks behind high fullbacks, so it requires midfielders with anticipating abilities and center backs comfortable in 1-versus-1 recovery runs. A 4-2-3-1 builds defensive solidity with a double pivot while allowing a dedicated number 10 to operate between lines. That middle layer is the most vulnerable, and therefore the most decisive in three-dimensional terms. Teams using the double pivot can compress laterally and protect depth, but they risk creating a flat attacking line if the number 10 is isolated. Practically, when the attacking midfielder drops to combine with the pivot, the shape becomes a compact 4-3-3 hybrid. Conversely, if the fullbacks push high and wide, it stretches the opposition horizontally and opens vertical passing lanes for runners in behind. Coaches choose this formation when they want a balance between control and direct penetration. Objectively, it requires disciplined holding midfielders and a creative mobile 10. Three-at-the-back systems, such as 3-4-3 or 3-5-2, change the 3D calculus by converting fullbacks into wingbacks, which vastly increases horizontal reach and adds a higher defensive baseline with a back three for cover. Those wingbacks supply both width and depth. They can pin opponents wide, then invert to overload midfield or peel off to stretch the defensive line. The trade-off is clear. A back three grants insurance for progressive wingback forays, but places greater demands on central defenders to handle wide transitions. Against narrow, possession-heavy opponents, a 3-4-3 can create overloads on the flanks and force switches of play. Against fast, direct attackers, it can be exposed if the wingbacks are caught upfield. Pressing styles map directly onto these formations. High, coordinated pressing works well with compact 4-3-3 and 3-4-3 systems because the forward line and midfield can compress space simultaneously, creating clear triggers for turnovers near the opponent's penalty area. Low-block counter systems favor a deeper defensive line and often pair with 4-2-3-1 or even 5-3-2 variants to invite possession and hit with vertical speed. A logical prediction for tournament favorites is that those with athletic, multifunctional wing players and reversible fullbacks will opt for flexible 3D shapes, starting with a high-pressing 4-3-3 and shifting into a 3-5-2 or 4-2-3-1 mid-game, depending on opponent adjustments. Concrete tactical tools illustrate how teams translate the 3D idea into match wins. False nine movement generates vertical pockets by pulling central defenders out of line, inviting midfield runners into the vacated space. Inverted wingers create central overloads, while fullbacks provide the wide outlets needed to maintain width. Set-piece routines also reflect three-dimensional thinking. Near-post runs, far-post overloads, and second ball positioning create vertical and lateral options that are hard to defend if defenders are already stretched. Objectively, the strongest tournament contenders will be those who combine formation flexibility with clear recruitment of player types, technically assured midfielders for central density, speedy fullbacks for width and depth, and forwards who can both press and occupy channels, because that balance reduces systemic weaknesses and maximizes the three axes of play. Predictions for the final stage. The 48-team expansion and 16-group, 3-team group format means each side plays only 2 group matches, so a single poor result carries outsized risk and goal difference becomes unusually important. Travel across a continent-sized host area will amplify the effects of rotation, with long transits and varying climates making squad depth a practical necessity rather than a luxury. Teams that can field multiple high-level X1s without a drastic drop-off will inherently be better positioned to manage the condensed stop-start rhythm of the tournament. Teams most likely to reach the final stage combine 3 measurable strengths: consistent goal scoring from different sources, tactical flexibility to switch between possession and direct patterns, and goalkeeper reliability under pressure. Brazil exemplifies the depth model, a strong pool of attackers and dynamic wide players who could be rotated without losing raw offensive firepower. Spain represents the possession paradigm, where control of tempo and passing structure can suffocate opponents, but may struggle if forced far from the ball. France sits between those poles, with high-end individual match winners, plus a broad roster of players who have elite club experience, giving them both finishing quality and fallback tactical options. Matchups will decide a lot in the knockout rounds, objectively. A possession-heavy side facing a compact, low block must either stretch the pitch with fullbacks and incisive vertical passing, or risk sterile dominance. Conversely, high-press systems from teams whose core play in intense domestic leagues can disrupt possession teams early, but such presses demand rotation to avoid fatigue and extra time. Penalty shootout preparedness and goalkeeper performance are non-negligible variables. Teams that rotate keepers frequently may suffer a cohesion cost in organizing a defensive setup under late pressure. Successful finalists will therefore be those whose coaches can alter structure mid-game, shifting from a high press to a mid-block or from positional play to quick counters without losing defensive integrity. Practical scouting of potential finalists should prioritize recent club usage patterns and injury records. Look for national squads whose core players get regular minutes in demanding competitions, since these athletes are already conditioned for short recovery windows. Tactical examples. A side built around tight positional triangles in patient build-up needs a reliable central midfield pairing, capable of breaking lines under pressure, while a counterattacking team requires fullbacks who can both close space defensively and provide outlets on transitions. Teams that balance youth and experience, players who have faced high-stakes club knockout ties, tend to handle the psychological swing of extra time and shootouts better. In summary, the most defensible prediction is not a single champion, but a profile. Finalists will most likely be nations with deep rosters, flexible tactical plans, and match winners who can decide single elimination games. Countries that combine club-conditioned rotation, multiple reliable goal sources, and adaptable defensive schemes will outperform one-dimensional sides. Expect the final stage to reward managers who prepare contingency plans, rotate intelligently, and exploit the tournament's compressed format rather than those who rely solely on a fixed starting 11. In short, the favorites list comes down to a mix of proven depth, current form, and tactical flexibility. Brazil and France lead on talent pool and bench quality. Argentina and Portugal offer elite attacking units with experienced cores. England and Spain show modern pressing and control-based systems. Germany remains a dark horse thanks to youth development and transitional organization, and the North American hosts will benefit from home advantage and infrastructure. These predictions rest on measurable factors: squad depth, recent tournament results, qualifying form, coach adaptability, and the physical demands of an expanded 48-team format that rewards rotation and versatile systems rather than a single stylistic ideal. Objectively comparing styles, teams that can switch between possession-based control, high press, and compact counterattacking setups will be best placed to handle the tournament's congestion and varied opponents. We want to hear your read. Which system or team do you think adapts best to 2026's challenges? Leave a comment with your choice and explanation. If you found this helpful, like and subscribe for calm, fact-based reviews. Stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next video.